I think we're good to go. We are live
Okay.
as well. So awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, everyone. For the ones who've taken the time out to join in, thank you. If you were here yesterday, welcome back. If you're here for the first time today, then welcome. This is our fifth edition of Indian Mediation Week, and we're so excited to have everyone here. You have, I'm Akshita. There's Pranjal. Pranjal, a quick hi from your side. Vikram, a quick hi. Um, so, Sama runs Indian Mediation Week, which is one of the largest student run access to justice campaigns. For the last for the last four editions, we were heavily focused on lawyers and law students. And this year, when we were planning out the edition, we were like, there is a really, really important stakeholder that's missing. And that's when we realized that this ecosystem is absolutely incomplete without the fabulous engineers and all the tech heavy minds out there. Because all the solutions that we see today, everything that's sort of getting scaled up or new services, is so heavily built on the tech aspect of it. So welcome to, if you're an engineer in the audience and you've come in, welcome. Don't worry. Though we're most of us are lawyers here, your panelists today are the people that you want to keep an eye out for. Thank you, Shashank, Deepak, and Akshat for joining us today. The idea, just for the audience, is we have Shashank, who is still in college and doing some incredible work. Like, I can tell you that we probably met a couple of professionals who won't have the experience and stories that Shashank would probably be able to have while he's still in college. And if you know us from before, you know that we're huge proponents of just don't wait till you graduate, or don't wait for just start, like start now. We're really, really pro youth activities and sort of having students engage in impact projects, students engaging in their ideas and making it big. So Shashank fits that bill perfectly. We have Deepak Jha here. Thanks, Deepak, for coming in, who is, again, there are probably a lot of you in the audience who has an idea and you just feel like, what next? What do I do? As an engineer, is it something that I can do? Can I run something of my own? Is there, Deepak's the man that you're looking out for. So stay tuned to hear him. And you have Akshat from Logistify. Hi, Akshat. Thank you so much for coming in. Um, he will just talk to you about running a good legal tech company. How, the whys, was it easy, was it scary? And these are questions that you can go ahead and ask them. We've already mentioned in the panel that it's also okay not just to ask them technical questions about what they're doing, but you can really deep dive into their minds and their mind space of how it's been on this journey. Like, personally, some of the questions I would really want to know is, what were the scary moments? When did that idea sort of work? Because you have an idea, but how many permutations and combinations did it take till it clicked? We see a great article, but what was the hard work, sweat and blood that went behind it? So feel free to ask your questions. The Q&A box is open to all of you. As you have questions, if you'd like to unmute, we could also push you up, have you as a panelist and talk. And yeah, use the chat feature as they're speaking. The ones who aren't speaking would be able to answer to you. They've also been kind enough to sort of end this by giving you access to them, probably an email ID that you can write to them if you have more questions. But the idea is, if you have past luggage and past baggage on what engineering is, or where you can really create impact, or where you can bring your skill set, um, leave that down for this talk. And why don't you listen to the three of them? I think they're coming in with a lot to offer today. And I hope by the time this talk is done, you go back with at least a few more doors kicked open and your mind a little more open to where all you can actually create an impact. And it might not be where you only think it is. So, with that, I think I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, which is Akshat. Akshat is actually, he's a graduate from BITS Pilani, and he founded Logistify, which is a tech-enabled legal concierge platform, and they work with mid-market and large enterprises. And I'm going to keep the introduction really small because I'm going to allow Akshat to do it. But what he's passionate about is probably what you're curious. And startups, investing, legal technology, and entrepreneurship. These are words that vibe with Akshat. And Akshat, over to you. Please go ahead.
Hi guys, thanks a lot everybody for inviting us. We really, I'm personally really excited to be a part of the Indian Mediation Week, and it's been a great initiative that you guys have. We've also personally been huge fans at the work that you guys are doing. So firstly, congratulations to the entire team at Sama. It's a great initiative. Um, right. So very quickly, my name is Akshat. I'm a graduate from BITS Pilani. Uh, I come from a small town called Jaipur, Rajasthan. It's not that small anymore now, but it's a beautiful place. So I was born and brought up there, and I did my schooling there, and then I went on to join BITS Pilani, which has been a great experience. I mean, I would love to walk you guys through the entire journey that I have personally had, and I sincerely hope that there are points wherein which had been really really helpful for us during our journey. And the most important thing here is that the kind of mistakes that we personally did, being first time entrepreneurs, being first time founders, is something that I always talk to people about. I happen to talk to a lot of my juniors. I happen to talk to a lot of other aspiring founders, a couple of them even seniors to me. And there are points that we go through all the time, uh, which are points that we've sort of learned the hard way, and we always sort of try and help people out on those things. So very quickly, I think, see, the entire concept of running or founding startups to me, sort of came personally somewhere in the year 2009 or 10, when the very first startup that I personally saw was Flipkart. And even I did not really understood the entire concept. I mean, we were still in school. I was about to graduate. I was about to graduate from school, about to go to college. 2007 was, I think, when the year the entire company was found. And a lot of people are very highly unclear, and this also happens to be one of the major areas which have sort of minted millions and billions of dollars, not just in terms of investor money, but also in terms of the entire consumer behavior that these guys have changed. um, and very very one fine day, I've had the chance to meet the founders, and it was a great experience. And we got a lot of other founders also up. Later we realized that Bits had also sort of produced a lot of brilliant founders, from Redbus to Zivami to Map My India to any other startup that my friends are doing. So it's been a great journey. So that's how I got introduced to the entire concept of running a company, very very superficially. And then I think in 2011 was my first year at college. And as someone going in from college, after studying so hard for engineering, you tend to get distracted. The very first year is something that you experiment on, and there's a lot of freedom. And Bit specifically had this culture. I mean, it was opened with some partnership at MIT Massachusetts. So we really have like a zero attendance policy. So I did not go to any class possible. There was no class that I went to. I think I could count it uh, on using both my hands the number of classes that I went during my first year. But the entire experience was quite exhilarating. I mean, we didn't go to classes, but then the kind of people that I had personally met during the entire journey, all of them are brilliant, because everybody was sort of coming in from different backgrounds. Everybody was bringing in a lot of different things to the table. And while I was in my second year, I clearly remember I started a table reservation platform for pubs and restaurants across NCR and Bangalore. Yeah, so it was called Zeet. And I was still in my second year, just got into my second year, and I thought that this is the time when I could do something. The risk appetite is extremely high, and there are a lot of things that one could do while still in college. So we started that off. Very interestingly, we reached over 400 listings during the first 3 months for restaurants. So I used to travel to Delhi and Bangalore every month, twice every month, especially Delhi, because Pilani say Delhi is like a 3 hour, 4 hour train. So that was quite, convenient for me. And I had a lot of friends also studying in Delhi that point of time. So used to stay with them, go through ideas. And I think I was probably the only one who was actually involved in trying to do something like this. All my other friends were either studying or doing something else. So the entire experience was quite interesting. And when we actually started to scale things up, our revenue model was that we used to charge a referral fee whenever we sent a customer to any of these restaurants or restaurant partners or pubs. Unfortunately, when they found out that we were students still in our second year, they started defaulting on our payments. Um, and as a first time entrepreneur, of course, I did not have any access to understand how, this would work, how I would actually get this money that we were owed, how we would actually survive. Because yes, of course, we were there in college, but even those 10-15,000 rupee a month revenue coming in was a great, saver, because we could actually put that money back into the business, do some marketing, hire some first year interns, and do a lot of other things. So unfortunately, that couldn't scale up. At the end of our second or third year, we had to sort of shut the shop down, because we also happened to win a lot of other business plan competitions also during that point of time. I think Zomato and Swiggy were just brimming up in the ecosystem. So I really sort of, there's one major sadness that I have in my journey is that I couldn't go through that, because till I mean I Swiggy opened up after it, and the guys at Swiggy are 4 to 5 years senior than me, same campus. So yeah, they were lucky enough to actually make it, and they were resilient enough to actually make it. So that was the first defining moment personally in my career. And I went through all of this, and while I was in my final year, the thought never left my mind that as a first time entrepreneur, you do not really have access to, as a business owner, you do not have access to sound legal advisory, to someone who could actually guide you through whenever you need any sort of legal help. And I started speaking to, while I was graduating, so my last year, while I was graduating, I started talking to a lot of lawyers, entrepreneurs. And the problem was actually profound, more profound than what I actually thought. And that's how we started Logistify. The entire journey got started from there. So, but since we had some experience, and since we had done something in the past, we didn't wait for the circumstances to actually be in our favor. We raised a small amount of money. So this was in the year 2016. I was still in college. I shifted to Delhi completely because, of course, as I said, there's no point going to classes in bits. There's no requirement. So I actually shifted to Delhi. Started working on Logistify full time. Got a couple of my friends to join in, and we raised a very, very small amount of money. I remember the very first from Bits in Angels and some other angels. And that's how the entire journey got started for us. Now getting inside the journey, the first 3 years were tremendously, I mean, they were extremely painful, to be honest. So we started off with a DIY agreement drafting platform. We later realized that there was, I mean, people are not really that aware, right? Someone who doesn't get into a situation like this is not really aware of how the problem would look like. And to make them aware, and this was very similar to the example of Flipkart that I quoted, to make people aware of how an e-commerce platform works, you need loads and loads of money to actually make them aware of the entire thing. So capital was not something at our disposal at that point of time, and legal technology as a market was still booming and still was in a very, very nascent stage. It still is, but then back then, I mean, consider the situation 5 years back. So that was bizarre. And then we thought that we'll widen our reach. So we started over the B2C marketplace. So we onboarded some 2,000, 3,000 odd lawyers, raised another round, scaled it up to a certain level. But then similar problems, came into the path wherein we wanted to build like a billion-dollar enterprise. We wanted to actually impact uh, a lot of people through our work. And somehow, on the B2C segment, we realized that people are not that adept to technology, let alone lawyers not being able to follow technology at that point of time. Even consumers at one point of time, they just wanted to do things offline. And surprisingly, I mean, very luckily, because I believe luck is going to play a very, very major role into whatever you do. There's 95% hard work, 5% luck, but that 5% plays a big role when it comes to you trying to build something from scratch. So very luckily, a couple of general counsels reached out to us. We were sort of attending an event, I don't even remember. So they reached out to us asking that, boss, you've got a very, very solid network, and we would like to personally use that network. And that's how we shifted our base towards helping enterprises. And then since the last 2 years, we're completely B2B focused company, and we've seen phenomenal growth. So finally, after 3-4 years of hard work, we're actually seeing phenomenal growth now. So we now work with over 150 plus bigger enterprises, from Amazon to Havels to whatsoever. We're working with over 10 plus insurers in the country, 4 or 5 banks, NBFCs. So the traction has been immense. So during the entire journey, I think one of the most important thing that we could achieve was to, sort of leverage technology at every possible touch point, which is something that I wanted to do as an engineer. There was no incentive for me to actually run a law firm and make some money. There is, of course, money across all those aspects of, trying to run a business. But I think as an engineer coming from a very different field, trying to solve problems for a completely different field, there was one thing that we always stood by was to basically make sure that we leverage technology to create something impactful. And fortunately, I mean, we're probably the only legal technology company in the country right now who'd recently been invited to Y Combinator. uh, we've now been backed by, so I'm sorry I actually spilled this news out. A lot of other people do not know it. But yeah, I mean, so that was great. I mean, and we now have backing of some of the leading investors in the country. We're constantly seeing interest. uh, so yes, this is what been the journey so far. I mean, in terms of this, I think success is something that I don't really pay much attention to, so I would not really talk about that much. Raising money, getting people to invest in you, all of that comes in automatically once you found out the core as to what you want to build. A lot of engineers, even when I speak to a couple of people, a lot of other aspiring entrepreneurs, I think one of the key motives that they have in mind is, how do I raise X amount of money? How do I raise from this guy? Um, this is something that, I mean, I personally been fortunate enough to have figured out along the way. And the only thing that I'd actually figured out is that uh, you don't have to run after, after things that sound fancy. You have to work on building things that, create a lot of value. So that's been really helpful for us. um, so very quickly, what we're building is we're basically building a market network for legal. So it's essentially a SaaS-enabled marketplace for enterprises across the country to use technology at various touch points of a dispute. So any dispute that a technology that an enterprise is involved in, we provide them with a technology solution which helps them keep a track on it, manage it, work manage the entire thing, reduce stress on their existing internal legal teams. On top of this, as an value added service, as an add-on service, we also give them a network of expert hyper-local lawyers. And the most important thing, the the craziest thing that I personally feel that we're doing is we're changing the entire narrative from subjective to objective. So we currently using over 200 million plus historic case data trends to actually identify how an outcome of a matter would flow in, as soon as it is initiated against you. We're actually, one of the things that I personally found problematic in this space was that any lawyer that I spoke to initially, whatever help that I asked from him, say a property dispute to a marriage dispute, the lawyer would come in and tell me that, boss, I'm an expert in both. Uh, and then I realized that no, it doesn't work like this. I mean, I can't be a computer science engineer along with being a civil engineer. And trust me, I'm being bad at both. So I very well know that it doesn't work that way, right? So that's also another interesting thing that we're building, right? So we're basically breaking down every lawyer's practice across actual metrics of performances which are objective enough for people to be able to choose to put in logic, right? So even if you buy something on Amazon, you look at the ratings, you look at other 10 different things, you look at the seller ratings, maybe you read reviews, you do this and that. Legal being one of, business altering, life altering decision, we believe that there's a lot of scope. And I always get into fight with any potential investor or any other investor, or especially investors, particularly people who do not understand the industry that well, that, boss, this is one industry that has been untapped, and I don't know how is that even possible. From delivering medicine or food supplies to buying underwears, everything has been disrupted by technology, and it's going to be disrupted even more, right? Any industry that you pick up, uh, surprisingly, I mean, this still remains to be like an age old industry wherein, there's still a very, very high amount of technological intervention that, we as entrepreneurs could bring in. And that is one thing that, personally keeps me going. And I think just to sort of, conclude this, there's one very so Michael Sable, who's you guys could Google him later. He's the MD at Y Combinator, and before that, he was the CEO at Twitch. So these guys sold this company to Amazon for $1 billion, and then his co-founder Justin Khan, he went on to found Atrium Law, which raised money from Anderson Horowitz. It's a huge thing. I've personally been their fan because, the proposition that they brought on the table was immensely huge, and, it was futuristic, but then these guys were actually onto something. Unfortunately, the company didn't do well due to other reasons. uh, but, the entire concept was very nice. So, whenever we discuss this with him, I was actually discussing this with him, and I, sort of just asked him that, boss, I mean, why us, right? I mean, there are over 20,000 plus organizations who apply from across the world. Why did you really pick us, right? And he said that one of the most important things that I personally happen to see in founders, um, not their experience, not their age, not their education, is how relentlessly resourceful are they in general in life, right? I don't want them being resourceful. I don't want them being highly determined. I would like to see when people are relentlessly resourceful. So I think that's what describes us as an organization. That's what describes me as a founder. um, that's what I aspire to be. I'm not sure if I am, but then, I mean, that's what I always tell people. That's what I aspire to be. So, I mean, about a year and a half ago, I also started investing, uh, and it's been a great journey. So the first 6 months were absolute shit, and we I was losing money left, right, and center. But then, you go through that hustle, you go through that journey, and then you do realize that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's pretty much it. I'm more than happy if people have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There are actually two questions in the chat for you. So I'm just going to very quickly. One is, Akshat, who do you look up to, or which companies or people inspire you? And the second question was, in your experience, why do lawyers resist technology?
Right. So I think the first one, I mean, I honestly look up to not someone in particular, but people who are, generally sincere, people who are generally hardworking. And I also happen to like people who might not be that savvy with knowledge, but they've got the, determination to actually work twice or thrice as hard as others who do. These are teammates. I mean, there are internal teammates that I look up to. There are people outside. There are famous guys that I look up to. So that's been one inspiration for me. And in terms of why do lawyers resist technology, I don't think they resist technology. I think we personally, as founders, or we personally as people, have not really created solutions which are easy enough for them to use, or, there's, other than all the external factors, I don't really seem to think that they resist technology. Nobody in this world with a sane mind would actually resist technology. You give them an app which would help them get to a 10x revenue within a year's time. So a guy who would be earning 1 lakh rupee a year would now, at the end of this year, would make 10 lakh rupees. And then he would be all over this technology at any point of time. So I think the drive is different. The kind of solution, the kind of network is different. The kind of distribution changes, but they don't. I mean, we happen to work with lawyers who are quite technology savvy, and wait for a year or so. I think we'll have. I mean, I'll personally would love to come down again and tell you that, boss, a year ago we had, say, 100 lawyers using our technology, and now we've got a million plus. So yeah.
We hope so too. Also, thank you for spilling such important information on our webinar. We feel very flattered that this is where everyone hears amazing news. Pranjal,
Thank
do you
you.
have a question? I see you unmuted.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Akshat.
Hey,
Thank
Pranjal,
you.
hi.
Thank you for sharing that. One question, Akshat, from your experience, how it has been attracting engineering talent? Is the legal tech
Well,
sector attractive? Is the legal tech sector attractive for engineers for maybe like BitSins and IITians? If not, what do you think can be done to make the legal tech sector more attractive for them?
yeah, Bitsins are snobs. Uh, but jokes apart, see, I think yes. In general, it's difficult to actually hire good technology talent at this point of time, and there are lots of factors for it. Of course, especially after COVID, their sort of average salaries have been inflated, so a regular startup is not really able to afford the kind of talent coming in at a 3x price than what it used to come in a year or 2 years ago. That's one of the reasons why certain size of companies actually find it difficult. uh, in terms of how do we attract um, technology people or folks from good colleges, is that I think one of the things that help us attract these guys is we do not give up, right? So we talk to 1000 odd people, and at the end of the day only 5 people would actually be interested. Being very honest at this point of time, uh, keeping in mind the kind of brand value that we have, or any growing startup would have. You talk to 1000 odd people and only 5 of them would actually show interest and would maybe reach to the offer letter stage. uh, the other thing is that we are we be very honest with our vision and our principles in terms of what we're trying to make. um, in terms of the kind of environment we try and keep everybody as family. These are the only two things, honestly. Yeah, matlab, the last thing maybe could be that you give them an environment which lets them do. So we have an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time they will have to work for the actual work that the company does, and the rest 20% they're free to do some project of their own, which might not directly be related to the work right now, but they're free to do it. So we give them one day to actually do this. um, and then there are other things that we keep on doing. I think that is something that is helping us, but we have to sort of constantly improvise on all of these initiatives, very honestly.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
sharing that.
much. So there is another question, Akshat, and if you have time, I would request you to probably respond to that on chat. So that
Sure,
we're going to quickly move on to Deepak. But
absolutely.
Akshat, thank you so much. I know you really took time out to be here with us.
No
Stick on
problem.
for as long as you want, and we'll reach out to you.
Sure,
But
sure,
thank you so
absolutely.
much for being
Thank
here.
you so much, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so that was Akshat, everyone, and which was a great start. And now we're moving to Deepak. It's going to be even better. So, guys, don't feel like you need to wait till the conversation ends for you to ask your questions. Please feel free to ask questions as the speakers are speaking. And then it's easier for us to route them to the speakers as well. So, moving on to Deepak Jha. Hi, Deepak. First of all. Deepak is a graduate from IIT KGP and he jumped into entrepreneurship right after college. He built an edtech company, scaled it to 2.5 lakhs users before shutting it down. And in the past, he's also worked to promote entrepreneurship around the country and conducted events which aggregated to over 2 lakh students that participated. So, wow, Deepak, you better talk about that as well. He's currently working as a lead supply chain at our zoo. So, Deepak, welcome and over to you.
Thank you, Akshita. Thank you, guys. So this is the glamorous introduction. Now we'll move on to the real part. So I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Deepak. I come from not so very city part of Delhi. I grew up in some, you could say, remote part of Delhi. School was not so big. I used to rank like 80th or 100th out of 160 students in a school where rarely somebody was successful. Okay, so I came from there. Somehow I got to know about IIT in class 11th. Somehow I cracked it, went there, and came to know about this concept called entrepreneurship. How did I come to know about this? There was a senior called Amrita Anshuan. He was a entrepreneur. He came to campus. He explained very simply to me. There are only two cases what that can happen when you're starting up. Either you're successful or you're successful. There are absolutely no failures when you're starting up. That's what I realized throughout this journey, shutting down a company. So how don't you fail? Why are you always successful? So let's say if you're joining a company, you're working there for 2 years, you're having a limited exposure in whatever you're doing. So that is good. While you're starting up, you're going to have exposure at 10x level, if not more. Okay. So even if the company shut down, even if you have to shut down the company, even if things don't work, you are at a much better position if you have much bigger, much more exposure than you would have if you were, let's say, not starting up. So that's why I remember this line from Amitanshu: there are always two results to entrepreneurship: success and success. There is no failure over there. So I went to IIT Kharagpur, started working with entrepreneurship cell over there, worked to promote entrepreneurship throughout the country, worked with a few VCs. Then, like Akshat, I also started a POS startup in Delhi in my second year, inspired by Swiggy guys, who one of the co-founders was from my college, one of the co-founders was from Akshat college. The story is not very different. So that's where I come from. I've been experimenting since then, since my second year, then third year, tried something. I don't even remember what I tried back then. So the story is about trying and trying and trying. So you won't see me as a very successful person, or if you were to pick any successful person, you won't find them that they only got successes through their way. And to see their failures, you need to go closer. That's what I'm giving you insight about my life. So after graduating, I got placed in Topper. So Topper was an edtech company, is an edtech company, recently got acquired by Byju's. I saw that what they're doing is they're providing online tutors, online tuitions to students. Mota moti yahi kar rahe the, right? So at that point, we thought, what is the world going to look like in 5 years, or let's say 10 years? So more and more teachers would definitely want to come online, and they would want to deliver their lectures, their classes online. So this is the way the world was shaping in. We just had to identify it. That's what we did. So that is step one of entrepreneurship. You need to identify what to build. And usually this is the most important part. You once identify what to build, the next step is how you build it. So giving all our engineers, I don't think that should be very difficult, but I had my fair share of learnings from that too. When we started our company, nobody in our company knew tech. We hired someone, he left in 6 months, and we started to then find out solutions, what we could do. We could hire one more person, maybe start from scratch, maybe get in more resources, but that was something we could not do back then. We were student entrepreneurs, recently graduated entrepreneurs, and didn't have a lot of money in our bank. So what we did is something I would not recommend right now, but I'm very proud of. We started learning ourselves, and we built the app in 20 days. And thereafter, we shipped 60 apps in the next 2 years. So the second part of entrepreneurship is not very difficult. It is how you build things. So how you build things, either you can build them yourself, or you can get somebody to build it for you. That is not a very difficult part of entrepreneurship. So now coming to ClassCast, what we did at ClassCast. So I've told you that the world was changing in a direction where more and more tutors would want to come online and deliver their classes online. This is what we started with. Tried various models. We started with a platform model wherein we used to onboard teachers and tell them you can come to our platform and sell your courses to more and more students. For this, we visited almost every coaching center in Delhi that has more than 200 students. So that's like visiting like 5,000 coaching institutes in 1.5 years. Had our more than actually our fair share of rejections, a lot of failures back there. We realized that model is not working, but you see, entrepreneurship, two things are very important. It's perseverance and it's serendipity. So we had to persevere there. So what we did was we identified what was happening in other markets. So there was this market in SSC. An academy had come in the market and they had disrupted it very well. People knew they wanted to go online. Tutors knew they wanted to go online and teach online. They could do that. An academy had shown them how. So we then went to that market, exploited it, had a good run over there, captured good share of the market. Then we realized that the market is not that big enough. So these are the problems for later. You can skip them for now. But that's what we did. We persevered there, we were there, and we identified that this is not working for, let's say, K-12 market. For school teachers, they don't want to come online. We knocked on like 5,000 doors. If this is not working, this might work for something else. Some changes in the product might work. Some changes in the market might work. Some changes in yourself might work, but it will work. Yes, that is coming from someone who has recently shut down his company. I'll come down to that later. So we identified that that market is going to be successful, and we had a very good run over there. But after that, what happened? There was a COVID wave. A lot of startups came there. There was a lot of competition. And what really killed us was competition. To be honest here, we did not raise any money, and we were not ready for that kind of competition. So that is one mistake that we did there, and you don't have to do. Okay. I'm seeing a question here. Deepak, what would be your top advice for someone who's wanting to jump into entrepreneurship? The top advice would be do it. And about how to do it, I think I've told you there are 3 things to it. Identify what do you want to build. Identify the market size. Is it big enough? Do you want to target that market? How you're going to build it? Just get the team. Who would be the people doing it? Do you know the market yourself? Do you know how to build the product yourself, or do you need to get someone else? Once you have the team, once you know what you build, you are almost there. 50% of the journey is already done. Now you just need to figure out distribution strategies, CAC, and all the terms that you'll come to know about when you're starting up, right? But before starting up, these are the only 2 things I would say that you want to know, whether you have the right team or not. You can develop the product, you understand the market. 2 things, and about the market itself. Where do you want to start? What market, what problems do you want to solve? So I think that is number 1 advice for somebody who want to jump into entrepreneurship. $1 billion market, good investor interest if targeting global market, tremendous potential if coupled with.
So I think that's Akshat's response to another question. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So guys, and one thing that you need to believe in is serendipity. So as an entrepreneur, if you remember Arrhenius equation, I don't think the panelists here would, but I hope you should. K is equals to A E minus power RT. So in that, you see that's the rate law equation, how you get the rate law. As in how the molecules of the gas are going to interact and the reaction is going to take place. That is not very different from what we experience in life. So I have seen that the K, that is just success rate, is dependent on A. That is the collision frequency of how many people you are interacting with. How many chances are you trying? Are you trying enough? Did you try once, twice, thrice, 5 times? You need to try enough times. For different problems, there is a different A. If I want to lift a cup, I might do it in only 1 attempt because I know how to do it. But if I were to, let's say, trek to Mount Everest, I would take at least 3-4 attempts. I don't know how to do it. I might even die, right? So A is your collision frequency, E is the exponent, and EA is the activation energy. That is, again, with each task, your activation energy differs. For lifting a cup, I only have to put in the energy that I don't even notice. To build a startup, I might have to put in more. I definitely have to put in more. To push a truck, a lot more. So your activation energy and your ambience and how much are you trying is going to define whether you are successful, what is the probability of you getting successful. So I always keep Arrhenius equation keep to my heart, and as entrepreneurs, as engineers, I would recommend learn it by heart. Okay, I think we can move on to questions now.
Thank you, Deepak. So Deepak is open to questions. So please do, if you have any questions, make sure you drop it in the chat. So yeah, there is one, Deepak, for you on the chat.
Hi, Deepak. Plans on getting back into entrepreneurship? Definitely. I want to be a 10x entrepreneur before I die. Which sector attracts you the most? So I won't be starting up in next 6 months, 1 year at least, but I see crypto is booming. By crypto, I mean decentralization and entire Web3 thing. So there has been generations in Web, right? Web 1 was where you could develop something and only one who knew the address could access it. Then there was Web 2 powered by Google. You could access everything that is there on the internet. Then there is Web 3. That is something where we'll see a lot of college entrepreneurs and a lot of engineer entrepreneurs. That is something That is a market that nobody is very experienced in. So that counts as an advantage for engineers. You are probably the most experienced guys in it. You know how the rules are being made there. So that counts in your experience. So crypto Web3 is one of the markets that I'm very keen on. Then there is creators economy. A lot of people are turning creators and it's going big, big and big. So that is something definitely I'm keeping my eye on. These two sectors, I'll probably, if I'll be starting in, let's say, if I were to start tomorrow, I would be starting in one of these two sectors. Peak Bangalore ETH moment. We see some Twitter fans over here. How do you identify what to build? So identifying what to build is not very difficult. Again, so you can make it an engineered process. You need to identify what market you want to be in. So there are two ways you get to a startup idea. Either you engineer it, you identify what is there going on in there, or you just feel there is something wrong with the world. We started with the second approach, that this is going wrong with the world, coupled with the first one. But a better approach would be the first approach, in which you identify, okay, there is this energy market, there is this finance market, there is this legal market, there is this maybe manufacturing market. What appeals to you? Who you as a founder, what market as a founder appeals to you? What do you see yourself? Would you be happy working with, let's say, hundreds of lawyers around you? Would you be happy working with, let's say, solving cab problem or what? So that is figuring out the market. Once you're in a market, identify who are the key players doing, who are the key players doing there? Who are the key players there? What are they doing? What are the loopholes there? If there is any one step that you could optimize, make it better, eliminate some of the processes, reduce time, reduce money, increase revenue, any of that, just do that. Now you have a problem. You can iterate through the solution through years. Most of the startups that you see today didn't start as they are today. Zomato started as some office phone number directory where you could find what is available in the restaurant and all. So all of the startups that you see today didn't start with the product that they have today. They started with the problems that they are still solving. So you just need to identify what market do you want to be in, what problem could you solve there, what problem do you want to solve there. And once you've done that, do some mathematical calculation. Is there market? If the market is good enough, as in big enough, is it going to generate enough revenue? Maybe not now, maybe 50 years down the line, maybe 20 years down the line. Is it ever going to be big enough? And a lot of it depends on who you are as a founder. What do you relate to?
So, Deepak, what we're going to do is just take one more question and then I'll request you to sort of start typing your answers out. But
Sure.
the question that I'm also really curious is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how attractive is the legal tech sector for you?
I'd have to say one. Is there
Um,
zero?
okay, thank you so much,
So that's
Deepak.
being honest, because I don't see a lot of investor money going in there. I don't see a lot of my friends starting up. So that is my definition of whether I'm interested in it or not. But you, Akshat, a lot of smart people are going up there.
Let us help that. Let us help that to change that perception for you very soon.
So people like Akshat and people like Pranjal, Akshita, smart people are coming in, building the ecosystem. So as the ecosystem ripens up, when there are more and more start. So smart attracts smart, right? So there were not enough people like us in the industry before, but people like Akshat, people like Pranjal, people like Akshita are going there now. So it is more and more. We are more our propensity towards the legal tech is increasing, and I guess it will increase over time.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Heart is still getting over the one, but no problem. Thank you for the honesty. But Deepak, we're going to move to Shashank now, but I will request you, there are 2 more questions or 3 more questions on the chat. So if you could probably type that out and give the answers there, that would be great.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. Really, really appreciate the candid honesty, not just the one, but also just how you walked us through the journey. I think it is so incredibly rare to be able to get into the minds of the people who are doing who are working. And that's what I was saying even about Akshat, right? You read so much about what everyone's doing, but you would never know. Have you like, sat on the bathroom floor and cried because you just can't figure out what's going on? Because I know for a fact like that's happened to me. But thank you so much for the honesty. Please do answer those questions. And we'll now move on to Shashank. Hi, Shashank. I'm so glad your answer won't be a one from 1 to 10, I hope. But very quickly, I'm just going to introduce Shashank to everyone in the room. He is a fourth year undergraduate student at IIT KGP, majoring in economics and pursuing a minor degree in mathematics and computing and a micro specialization in artificial intelligence and applications. Damn, Shashank. Like, that is amazing. Um, he has also been working in the space of law, economics, and AI research domains since his second year. And he's actually working at the World Bank while he's still in college for the last 1.5 years. He aims to pursue research in the field of economics and AI with a focus on public policy. So, Shashank, take it away. So excited to hear what you have to
Uh,
say.
sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Am I audible? If anyone can tell me if I'm audible.
Yeah, perfectly audible.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I am going to talk about is going to be completely different than what Deepak and Akshay talk about. My focus will mostly be on research and how a student of my age pursuing engineering can venture into this field, apart from the entrepreneurial grit. So my talk will be more focused on the research aspects of law, economics, and AI, basically legal tech space, but in the domain of research. So if I can get an option to share my screen, I've prepared a very brief presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, go
Thank you.
ahead.
So first, I would like to start with what is legal tech and overview. It was beautifully summed up by the speakers before me, Akshat and Deepak, with more anecdotal evidence and more interesting stories. So I think my version might not be as interesting, but I'll try my best. So first is what is legal tech and what are the subdomains that legal tech incorporates. So first thing that I would like to focus on is the operations. So as we all are aware that in India, about 4.5 billion cases are are still left to be resolved. And it's a huge number. And I believe it's probably the largest number we can see in the entire world. So in courts, an intervention of technology can be allocation of these cases to various different judges and having an incentive-based system for mediator or case allocation and using them as heuristics in your algorithm to make it work even better so that the caseload becomes lesser in the coming years. And second one being in the law firm. So just a quick question. I believe most of you would have watched Suits, the lawsuit in the series, which revolves around a law firm. So in that series, you might have noticed a character called Benjamin. So did not have a lot of appearance in the show, but one of the most critical and important aspects when you look at the legal tech domain. So that guy was basically an engineer handling the tech side of that law firm. So in recent times, law firms have started incorporating technology in their operations more, which is basically, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning and information retrieval and algorithms, which incorporate these things, can be used to lessen the workload on the paralegals and they can work on much more important things. This saves time and is very efficient. Then there come the legal tech startups like Logistify, as Akshat told, and definitely Sama, which might also be using the technology space to resolve disputes. And then we have the efficiency and automation part, which is private, which I can define as private versus public. So in private, many of you might have heard about Bloomberg Law. So Bloomberg Law is a platform in the US which has almost all the cases from the 1800s to the current times present on their website and has all the metadata of those cases as well, so that any researcher can get them and do some kind of research, or anyone in public can look at them and try to cite them or read them. Versus we have these public domains like Kenya Law, which is in Kenya. So the research that I've been doing for the past 1.5, 2 years at the World Bank incorporates both these things, which is we've been working with Bloomberg as well as Kenya. So the difference that I notice in the private versus public space is that the private space is very efficient and has a lot of metadata present and is maintained very regularly, whereas the public website by Kenya is again a very good intervention, but the only thing that is problematic is that it is all manual. So there are manual annotators who are actually reading the case and putting up the metadata of the case as soon as they upload it. So we can make it more efficient being engineers and being much more aware about all the algorithms that come in, which are basically the engineering perspective using AI, ML, and NLP. So basically, what we worked on is we made a named entity recognition algorithm to extract different outcomes and different snippets from the text. And we've been working on with Kenya Law on that. And that's what our research is focusing on. And then there is the underlying economics, which is the interpretation of the benefits and the costs that come around from the metadata. So this is basically looking at it from an economist's perspective, since I'm majoring in economics, so I'll be talking about it a little bit. Then there is the research design, which you have social, monetary, and public policy. In the social, we've also been working in the social sector for the past 2 years, which is basically our research which focuses on pollution in India. And then there are the monetary aspects of various legal cases. How do they affect the firms, and how do they affect the public policy, and how we can change things to make it more efficient. Then the ultimate aim of legal tech that I think is a global impact. So if your work does not have a global impact, and if it is not helping out the poorest of the poor, and it's not helping out the people who are actually in need of help when it comes to technology and law, then it's not an awful lot of use. That's what I personally believe in, that the work, anything that we do should help the masses, should help the public in some way. Then I would like to, this is from my perspective, where do I fit in, or where does a regular college student fit in? So we can ask ourselves, is research for me? And if yes, where do we start? So what I can personally tell you about from my experience is that we can first read and understand where your skills fit in. It can be in economics, it can be in finance, computer science. Almost every engineering student now knows programming, and also about the mathematics, since engineers are very good at mathematics and problem solving. So first we need to analyze what kind of skills that we have and how we can apply it in the legal tech domain, especially in research. The second one being the power of data, which is basically the core strength of a research assistant, and some part related to information retrieval, so that the data can be made much more efficient and you can utilize it in all forms of research. Next is the ideas and innovation, which is basically the usage of machine learning and natural language processing or statistical analysis, which focuses on implicit bias and explicit bias and can be used to extract outcomes from the cases, which many times are not present in the online platforms. But which are extremely useful in analyzing the kind of bias or the kind of social network which goes behind all those judgments. So our research has also been focusing on these aspects. I'll just give a very small example from Google. So I just did this before this presentation. So if you go on Google and if you type, if you use Google Translate and you type he's a doctor and she's a doctor and convert it in Swahili, it gives yeye ni daktari and yeye ni daktari. But if you write yeye ni daktari and yeye ni daktari in Swahili and try to translate it to English, so it turns out to be he's a doctor and he's a doctor, and there is no mention of a she, which is basically some kind of an implicit bias going on behind that algorithm. So our research has been focusing on assessing these kind of biases in the text of the judgments and in the text of various legal corpora, to find out if this kind of implicit bias has some kind of an actual impact on explicit bias or any other outcomes of the case. Next is the analysis and the causal inference. That is basically the culmination of the top 3 points, which is basically, you know where your skills fit in, you start working on it, then you know how to handle data and how to work on it. And then you use your algorithms. Being an engineer, you're good at them. And then you do the analysis and causal inference. And then what you do is you make suggestions to public policy and administration so that they can change some kind of policy or bring in some new kind of interventions to mitigate the problem which was already there. And finally, we have the global impact, which is basically what the World Bank has been working on. So World Bank has these various interventions and randomized control trials going on in various countries, which are basically propelled by the prior research done in those areas or in those domains. So why I personally like research is that, to be simply put, it immortalizes the person in the sense that a researcher might not be there in future, but his or her work will be there and people will learn from it for years to come. So that is like one of the things that I go by when I work on research. And yes, probably that's it. And thank you very much for listening, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Shashank. First of all, from a non-engineer and as a lawyer, I just think the work that you're working on is incredibly cool. And I also really like the way how you explained the inherent possibility of a bias by just using those four. Like, it was really, really helpful. There are questions for you, so I'm just going to quickly direct you to those. Yeah, so there's a question, Shashank. What got you interested in the legal tech sector? Is the legal data or terminology sometimes too intimidating or complex to understand? How do you go about it?
Sure. So I'm majoring in economics. So I was really like, we gave the same J advanced paper, but I chose my major to be economics. But while I was studying in my first year, unfortunately, we don't have the zero attendance policy. So I actually had to go to the classes. But yes, so while I was studying economics, I got to know about the fields of machine learning and natural language processing, and I started reading up more on that. And then what I wanted to do was I wanted to apply those concepts in the field of economics. So I started reading papers. I read a lot of papers, and then I applied for internships in various domains, which cater to people who are actually working in machine learning and natural language processing and are majoring in economics. So if they want to do something related to economics, then I got in touch with a team of researchers and I started working under them. And then so that team basically worked on law and economics and used various kind of textual features that come across from the data. And then I moved on to the World Bank. And I've been working there for the past 1.5 or 2 years. And it's been really interesting. Then the second question was, is the legal data terminology sometimes too intimidating or complex to understand? Like what I see is that jargons are literally there to keep the people who are outsiders outside. So similarly, like in the field of finance, you find very complex terminologies, but when we actually try to understand them and see them, they're not very complex. So same thing goes with legal text. Initially it looks like we are outsiders and we do not understand much, but it's like once you get a hold of it, once you start reading it, it's very handy. You get to understand it fully.
There are two more questions, Shashank. How many hours in a day do you read? What is your approach to reading literature on the issue you are researching?
Okay, so I've been asking this question to my seniors for a lot of time now. They do not have the right answer. I do not have the right answer, but like what I can tell you, what I do personally is that if I have a research question at hand or if I have a task at hand, I start reading about it. I search all the leading authors that have written on the topic, and I skim read those papers, and then I focus on the one that I find interesting, and I try to apply it, and I see if it is easily applicable. Since in the research that we do, it is very time bound. We have to deliver things at the right time, and so that the research goes on fast, and we are able to publish more. So I basically work that way, like skim read a lot of papers, but focus on one or two that you think you can apply quickly. You can just quickly apply them, and then you can move on to the next papers and start applying them too. And then you can analyze what the differences were and what is the best way to do it.
Thank you. And we have a question that says, Shashank, what are your plans after graduation?
I intend to go to a grad school and study more economics in future. Perhaps a PhD is what I'm aiming for. At some point, I would also love to do a JD in law because I've been working in law for a lot of time and it's really interesting. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Shashank. I think also the folks back at World Bank speak so highly of you. And I think it's just a testament to the work that you're doing. But thank you, everyone. I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. I could see Pranjal and Vikram also nodding throughout. But it is so amazing to hear all your journeys and what you're doing and how you approach it. And just as a takeaway, I think for everyone watching, um, as all three of them said, there is no fixed, correct way of doing something. But the one common thing that everyone seems to have done or have stated is that just start doing it. So, whether you're a law student, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an engineer, if there's something that you want to try doing, please go ahead and do it. The series of all these talks, this IMW, is at least to give you some ideas if you're curious, probably explore some inspiration, but more for you to start your own journeys and probably pick up a few ideas. So, with that, okay, we just have one more question, Shashank. How do you approach a data set when starting out? Any suggestions to freshers interested in data science?
Uh, I learned the hard way, which is basically don't go for the analysis straight away. Please do the descriptive analysis first. Find out what's in there, because if you directly go to analyzing and start applying your algorithms or start running regressions, and afterwards you find out, okay, this was wrong, then your entire analysis was wrong. So first, just take your time with the data. Take a week, take a couple of weeks understanding it, what it is actually about. Start reading more, how to pursue that kind of data. If it's panel data, it's different. If it's proper time series, it's very different. And the underlying mechanisms are very different. So first, the time should be spent. Like I've done this mistake many a time, so I would just say, don't do it. Just sit with the data, understand it.
Thank you, Shashank. So with that, I think we're close on day 2. I think we are so thrilled to have the engineering ecosystem be a part of this community, because there is just so much value in being able to have our skill sets and our domains sort of cross over for larger problems and larger issues to be resolved together. There is so much power in us coming together. So we are so incredibly happy to have had you in this Indian Mediation Week. I don't think we see any Indian Mediation Weeks in the future that does not hold a good, solid space for engineers and their voices as well. Thank you so much. Before we close down, I will just probably hand it over to Paul if there are any instructions for tomorrow's session, which is day 3. And once again, thank you to all the speakers and panelists who came in here today. For the audience members, if you have any further questions, if you want to reach out, just probably shoot us a mail, reach out to us, and we'll be able to connect you to the panelists as well. Over to you, Paul.
There are no instructions per se, but the only thing I would tell you guys to watch out for is that our timing for tomorrow and the day after changes to 4:30. So it's not going to be at 6 p.m. We're going to have both our sessions at 4:30 tomorrow and 4:30 on Thursday. And to just quickly introduce tomorrow's speakers, because they're very, very senior people, I'm just going to ask Pranjal to maybe just give a small intro to what tomorrow's talk is going to be. And I think it'll be especially relevant for a lot of lawyers, young lawyers, even old lawyers, because we have Pramod Rao and G.R. Raghavendra speaking tomorrow. So Pranjal, you can just maybe
Absolutely. Sure. So, sure, Paul. So the theme for tomorrow, guys, is how can we strengthen mediation in India? The core topic for Indian Mediation Week. That's at heart, Indian Mediation Week is about promoting mediation in the country. And we have, in light of the new mediation law coming, we have the Joint Secretary from the Ministry of Law and Justice himself coming. He is also a part of the committee who's drafting the mediation bill. So G.R. Raghavendra is going to be there, and he's going to share his insights, what challenges they are facing, how from a government's vantage point, mediation can be improved in India. So he'll be tackling that. And then we'll be having Pramod Rao, who's the Group General Counsel of ICICI Bank. And ICICI Bank has been one of the earliest adopters of mediation, arbitration, online dispute resolution. And he has been a big evangelist, a big champion of ADR services. And he'll be going to share his perspective more from an enterprise dimensions. So yeah, we have these two star-studded speakers tomorrow. Log in at 4:30 and we'll be for 1 hour. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Guys, personally, like for tomorrow's talk, just to know that there's going to be a space held and an opportunity for all of us to directly speak and ask questions and deliberate with these people is just going to be honestly exhilarating. Considering everything that's going on in mediation, do not miss out on it. It's literally almost like a one-on-one discussion that you're going to get to have, because we will open it out to question and answers. So that segment is going to be honestly the highlight. So do come in, and thank you, Pranjal. Thank you to everyone who logged in. We will see you tomorrow at 4:30. Please don't get that timing wrong, 4:30. And yeah, take care. Bye.